Hey there, and welcome to this week's Sunday Musings, where every week I spend a few minutes talking about things that are on my mind. I also write a weekly blog hosted on Medium. You can check that out with the link right here. That blog will have more information, resources, other details. It's always complimentary to the video, and I welcome your insight and feedback either there or here, or check out the end of the video and make an appointment with me on Calendly. I'd love to have a conversation. This week, I want to talk about imposter syndrome. I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret. I don't feel like I'm good enough most of the time. I push myself all the time. I try to attain something that may or may not actually be attainable. I shy away from praise and awards and often keep the receipt of them quiet because sometimes I just don't feel like I deserve that praise or the acknowledgments given to me. If I had just worked harder, I could have done more, and maybe then I would have deserved it. It could come across that I'm shy, and I am, and I'm an introvert, but that's not what's going on here. I have what is commonly seen or heard of as imposter syndrome. And for such a deadly disease, not really, I'm in good company. There are many other people out there, including maybe you, that suffer from imposter syndrome. Maya Angelou, after each book, would say, are they going to figure it out that maybe this time I'm not good enough? It's common in men, in women, in children. What is imposter syndrome? It's not a deadly disease. It's really an internalized experience where I believe that I'm not as competent or deserving as others might think I am. I often feel like a phony and I'm just waiting for people to figure it out. But the reality is, I'm actually really good at many things, and I work hard, and I really invest a lot in myself so that I am good at what I do. I'm not good at everything, but I am good at those things I choose to do. And it's really hard for me to admit that to myself. Another dirty secret, I will sit down in front of a mirror and force myself to tell myself face to face, eye to eye, and celebrate the things that I succeeded with every week. Because it's one of the ways that I work on combating my own imposter syndrome. So what is imposter syndrome? Well, it can result from a lot of things. And basically it means that you don't feel you're as good as others see you as. That you're an imposter, that you're going to be found out. It's not considered by psychologists or anything like that. It's not in the DSM, but it's very real. And psychology today estimates that 25 to 30% of people who are considered high achievers suffer from imposter syndrome. And at least 70% of all adults experience some form of imposterism at least once or twice during their lives. I think those numbers are low. I think we all have some insecurities. But where does imposter syndrome come from and how does it manifest? Well, perfectionism. It has to be perfect all the time. That goal, that aim for perfectionism, instead of just enjoying the process and doing as good or the best you can at that time, is embedded in imposter syndrome. You need to be better than everyone else, whether you do or don't, and whether you perceive it is or not. And most of imposter syndrome comes from within. It can come from having low self-esteem, or being scared of failing, or of succeeding. Stress from starting a new thing, a new role, a new project, a new job, moving to a new place. What if they don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? It also can come from the way you were raised. If you had important people in your life, parents, guardians, teachers who always pushed you that you weren't doing enough. Why did you only get a 95% on that paper? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you get the extra 5%? Or if you did a good job saying, wow, must have been easy. They don't really seem to teach you much there, do they? It undervalues your accomplishments. And that can lead to somebody who has imposter syndrome. Because seeing it from others and being raised with people or in circumstances where your accomplishments are undervalued can lead you to do that to yourself. So how do you overcome it? Well, it's going to be a lifelong progress. And the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that you have perhaps a skewed perception of your own reality. You need to learn when imposter syndrome is running your actions and call yourself out. This is a place where your personal board can be very helpful. Talked about that last week, where your personal board can say, hey, you need to stop. You are actually really an amazing person and doing great work. Maybe your perception of your reality is not accurate. Sometimes you need people to call you out so that you can learn to recognize things. A great way of doing that is creating a sort of a really oddball phrase between friends, so that if they say, aardvark, you're like, oh wow, what did I just say? And it doesn't have to be, it can be immediately in the moment, but it's not calling you out in front of other people like, hey, what the heck are you doing? Because that doesn't always make you feel good either, but it can acknowledge for you or point out to you that something just happened that fell within that imposter syndrome. So it's a great trick. The more you share and speak out about some of the things you do, helps you identify and makes it less of an issue because you share your stories. And that can invite you to share others people's stories and invite them to talk to you. And the more that you talk about your feelings, the more open you become to seeing things. As you share stories, you may hear a story from someone else that gives you that recognition of, oh wow, I do that too. And separating your feelings from the facts of the situation. If you complete a project and it is well received and it works well and it's well functioning, why are you beating yourself up that you missed this one thing or it could have been this much better? No one else is asking you about that. That's where your feelings do not relate to the facts. And take some time, like I do, to force yourself to celebrate the things you did well. A lot of time planners and day planners and all that nowadays have these call out your achievements or call out your gratitude sections. I don't necessarily care about the gratitude things, but really what I attempt to do is take that time every week and call out the 2, 3, 4, 5 things I did during the week that I did well, that I can be proud of, or that somebody else told me I did well, so that I can give myself permission to be proud of those. It's also giving yourself permission to make mistakes. That's a hard one if you're a perfectionist. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Give yourself permission to learn from those mistakes. The learning is part of your process. Sometimes you need to also take time aside and plan. What does success look for you? If you're starting a new project, what would this look like when it's done? Does that meet the criteria that have been placed upon you when you were assigned this project? Then what does it look like? And give yourself some milestones that you can acknowledge along the way that help reinforce to you that I am doing a good job. It's been really interesting lately. I've been asked a lot to speak to young professionals or college kids or junior high kids or high school kids lately about my career and my journey and how I got to where I am today. And the first couple times I was asked, okay, let's be honest, every time I'm asked, I'm wondering, why would anybody care? Why would anybody want to hear my story? But I think it's important. And what I've realized when I've shared my story with people is that I learn something about myself every time I do. And I have learned some valuable lessons along the way that I get to share with others. And I get feedback from them that really does help me understand that I have value to give. I was given an award last year at work for basically for just being a champion to my teammates. And it's a very important award to me. And I brought it home, and then I tried to hide it from everybody because, well, why would I get something like this? And I realized that my family makes sure that they put those awards out, and I always am like, you can just make those go away. And that's another part of my imposter syndrome, because those awards to me are symbolic in some way that I didn't do enough and I don't really deserve them, but I did, and I earned them. And I need to learn to celebrate the things I have done. So those are some things I do. I don't know that imposter syndrome is something that I will ever be rid of, but it is something that I work on every day. I actually saw a TED Talk, and I'll make sure that's linked in the Medium article if you're interested, where this amazing speaker talks about her imposter syndrome, and she named it. And every time the imposter voice comes out, she has named it and she has a conversation with it. And maybe that's a great idea too. Anyhow, what are your thoughts? Love to hear from you, and happy to share stories with you if it will help you, and to be here as a resource. Until next week, see you then.